Everybody. Make sure we got volume going on. Last time we had a couple of volume issues. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. No way for us to fix that. It wasn't settings on our end. We just had to redo stuff. And here we are. So today we are talking about a Democrat run tourist town. It's Asheville, North Carolina. They've got a 200% increase in break-ins amid a violent crime spike. At the very end of this article, we're going to see what they're kind of really talking about. But we talk about this kind of activity happening almost exclusively on the West Coast, right? Well, we're going to go to North Carolina and see what they've got going on because it is almost identical to what's happening here on the West Coast. Other articles we've got a good one. A defund the police. City council member in Los Angeles calls the police and begs them to help with one of his staffers' cars who nightmare, just total nightmare. And then word came out and the police are like, hey, you guys are hypocrites. Do you want the police or not? We're going to cover that. We've also got lawmakers here in Washington state are, believe it or not, reconsidering that whole legalizing the drugs deal. They're thinking maybe more along the lines of, hey, you know what? If we do make this illegal, drugs in general, hard drugs in general, illegal, maybe we should have some kind of treatment program set up. So it'd be a diversionary program into treatment. Because with the way things are going with fentanyl right now and with the meth and everything else, that's a lot of what is top of mind because you've got businesses leaving and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And regular citizens are, looking at their political leadership and going, what are you guys doing? And leadership is like, oh, man, not really sure how to address this one. And so we're going to talk about that. And the fourth one is you got a guy from Canada, comes down to Oregon, dumps a big fish on the front porch of the Goonies house. Do you remember the Goonies movie from 1985? Yeah, well, we've got that. And then he stole a boat from Astoria, the town where the Goonies house is in. Went out to probably one of the most dangerous places in the world for boats. It's called the Graveyard of the Pacific. And then, he rolled a 35-foot boat, was rescued. And you're going to have to stay to the exciting end of this podcast to figure out what happened. Crazy stuff, though. Crazy stuff going on down in Oregon. Let's jump into Democrat-run tourist town sees 200% surge in break-ins amid a violent crime spike. Wildly frustrating is the caption. And I'm reading this to you on MSN, but it is a Fox News article. It's interesting that MSN, Fox has got the good article. Let's post it. Break-ins in Asheville, North Carolina saw a 200% spike and a violent crime spike in the Democrat-run tourist town that has hemorrhaged police officers in recent years. Does that sound familiar? It does. And if you've been following kind of this whole defund the police storyline, you'll know that there's a handful of towns out there that kind of went down this road. And most all of them are in the same boat. Hey, we don't have enough police to make this go. So, it's not surprising. It's not shocking that you're having these numbers. But what you're seeing is you've seen an elevated rise in break-ins, particularly to businesses, since the pandemic. And more recently, it feels like the turbo button has been hit on that, right? Because you've got this criminal activity that knows, hey, we can break into these stores as many times as we want. And you know what's going to happen? Not much. The Asheville Police Department, which responded to 41 break-ins throughout 2022, has already fielded 11 reports of break-ins in 2023 as of February 1st. So 1 month in, they've got a quarter of all the break-ins that they had all of last year. Now, where is Asheville? Asheville is in between Charlotte and Knoxville, Tennessee. So it's in between those two cities. It is north and east of Atlanta, where we had Cop City. So that kind of gives you an idea. It's away from the ocean. So it gives you an idea of kind of geographically where it sits. Chris Faber, whose bar in downtown Asheville was targeted twice last month within a span of a few days, he told the outlet that a suspect broke into his establishment and stole about 20 bottles of whiskey and up to $800 in cash. he's going to have to make a couple of runs in and out of the store to steal 20 bottles of whiskey. Or is that a case? How many's in a case? Like a dozen? I don't know. My hard liquor is minimal at best. My friend does own a couple of bars, and I've seen that kind of come and go. You got the liquor distributor coming in and, doing their thing. I don't pay attention. You know what I mean? But they also got $800 in cash. All right. The suspect was then reportedly recorded on surveillance video breaking into a neighboring business and stealing from its cash register. That's what we hear about all the time in Portland, hear all the time in LA, all the time in Seattle. They just go one business after another because they're looking for their next fix, and they know that it's going to work. Odds are it's going to work. So why wouldn't we just do this? It's wildly frustrating. And mostly for me, it's frustrating because I'm not comfortable leaving my bar by itself when it happens that frequently. Faber told the local outlet, "We just don't know what to do as a preventative measure other than what we're already doing." And that's the tough thing for these businesses. I did one the other day. It was a comic book store. Was it Portland or LA? I can't remember where it was, but it was a comic book store. I think it was Portland. It was Portland. And the owner is like, yeah, I've been broken into like 3 times just recently, maybe in the last couple of weeks. I'm thinking about sleeping in my store. It's at that point in time, when you're kind of like, all right, maybe the environment that you're working in is something other than where you want to be, what you want to be doing. Another story I covered last week in Seattle, he's had a 116-year-old dry cleaning and carpet cleaning business that finally said, hey, we're out of Seattle. We're out of the south end of Seattle because too many break-ins, just too much crap happening. We're moving our business to the burbs. So this is what you've got going on, but it's not just a West Coast thing, right? Chucky McKelvey, who owns a bar in downtown Asheville, said a suspect broke into her business on January 18th and made off with alcohol and cash register filled with $7 worth of quarters. Quarters. You're stealing quarters. Okay. I feel like we're all suffering the problem, but none of us really have a great solution, McKelvey told WLOS. And you guys would say, move, get out. Yep. I can't disagree on that. What I always emphasize is that for these businesses, especially, a bar with its location tied to exactly where it is, you go do another bar somewhere else, you are basically hitting start over. You might get some people coming over there if you're in a small enough town, but the odds of that working when something shuts down and then closes for a while, people move on. Yeah, a few diehards might come over to the next bar, but you basically got to start over from scratch. All your permits, all that, your financing, all that stuff. New lease, new building, all that crazy stuff. So businesses like a bar, much more difficult than, say, a carpet cleaning business, where they basically just lease new space, but then, do whatever tenant improvements they need to. It's not as easy as it sounds, like just moving. But if you're being broken into this many times, I think it kind of gets to that point where you're like, all right, maybe we need to move on and we need to consider someplace else. I feel like we're all suffering the problem, but none of us really have a great solution. Of course, if more police presence were there, that would be a helpful deterrent. But I understand that's just not an option right now. One of the reasons I wanted to read this article is that's the same thing folks in Portland say. And some of these folks voted for all that craziness. They're like, defund the police. They're terrible. And now they're like, I really wish we would have some more police officers. And you can see it in the faces of these business owners that probably went down that whole defund the police. And in the back of their mind, they're thinking, this isn't really ever going to impact us to the point where we're going to regret this decision. Now, here we are a couple of years later, and they are regretting the decision in real time. And they're watching it just, spin out of control here, because what is going to stop this type of criminal activity? What's going to stop it? I mean, if you don't have enough police, and we've talked about, how long it takes people to get through, police academy and all that, and getting people onto the streets, that's a forever process. So you're guaranteed to have some of this until laws change, until you got more cops on the street. You've got a fentanyl addiction, you've got an opioid addiction issue out there that's just running rampant, and that's what's causing so much of this criminal activity, right? I mean, this is not brain surgery. If a real estate guy can figure this out, then that's kind of where we sit, right? And yet so many people want to say, it's all about housing. We just need more housing. Need more housing. I'm like, okay. So they, when they go inside, are they going to stop breaking into people's businesses? Is that what we're going to see happen? We just need more housing. Housing. It's going to be fine. It's going to be good. So, senior police officer Robert Kroom told the outlet that some businesses are not even reporting break-ins. That's what I talk about all the time. That even though these stats, these criminal activity stats, crime stats, are elevated, and we know that they're substantially higher than they've been, say this, this city relative to 2022, I think the stats are way higher. I think they're way more elevated than what's being reported to us, because so many businesses are like, all right, I know I should report this to the cops, but I've got, here's my ticker list of things to do after the break-in. And this is our 4th time we've done this. So we've got this drilled down. Calling the cops, what's that going to do? They're going to maybe send somebody out if they're not having a busy day. And, they're going to visit with us, and we're just going to do this little drill over and over and over. So why even call the cops? So I think that is a real reality with what's going on out there in these types of areas, North Carolina included. The break-in surge comes amid a violent crime spike in the historic mountain town, which has seen an influx of people moving in from out of state during recent years. Violent crime in Asheville increased 31% per 100,000 people between 2016 and 2020, nearly double the national average and an 18% points higher than North Carolina's 13% increase statewide during the same period. What's going on here? What's going on here? According to statistics released by their police department in September, Asheville Police Department in September, such trends have continued, rising 34% year to date compared to 2021 and 29% over 2020. You've had a spike like that in a lot of cities. Well, what's happening is the cities that went after that whole defund the police and embraced the mostly peaceful protesters, you've seen a real spike in those cities, Asheville included, right? The department noted that aggravated assaults are mostly responsible for the increase. Asheville Police Department Chief David Zach told Fox News Digital last fall that his department lost more than 100 sworn officers since May of 2020, and that the force is struggling to maintain visibility while operating at almost 42% down every single day. So policing, even in North Carolina, numbers of cops have dropped. And now they started at a low position in 2020, and they've just, 100 cops less. I don't know what their total police department numbers look like, but this is a smaller town. I'm going to say it's like 90,000, 100,000 people. I think I read that somewhere. Not a ton of folks. So when you lose 100 police officers, it's not like Portland or Seattle or, any of these bigger police departments where they can, bleed 100 officers all day long and be fine. That's just not happening. So, they've had a massive impact, and here we sit. Here's the last noted thing about this one. Multiple local law enforcement sources from Asheville who spoke to Fox News Digital last fall laid partial blame for the mass exodus of the police on the city's liberal leadership and on left-wing activists who undermine police. You got Antifa, you got Black Lives Matter. And now you got some real problems. And the business owners are like, yeah, we know that we put those signs up in our windows because we didn't want to get broken into during the pandemic. But now we'd like to see some more police. More police would be nice. Not necessarily a requirement, but more police would be nice. So that's where we sit in Asheville, North Carolina. I thought this one was interesting. So many of you have talked about other cities where this kind of thing has happened. And in Asheville, it went down one of those really get woke type avenues. And it almost mirrors identically to Portland and Seattle and San Francisco from the standpoint of, even though they're a mountain town and they're way out, somewhere far removed from all this West Coast stuff, if you do the same things, if you bring your police numbers down and you go that really woke route, you might end up like this. That cause and effect. That's just wildly in line there, right? It's just, this is just how it goes. And yet everybody's like, what happened? How did this happen? How did we get to a point where our criminal activity is going through the roof? One of the questions that people always ask me is, what's the answer to all this? What is the answer to all this? And what kind of a time frame are we looking at for this to get better? And so what mainstream media does is basically just ignore it. What break-ins? Are we having are there break-ins happening? I didn't know. I mean, I don't consume a lot of local news, and so what's happening? Tell me. That is literally what mainstream media does, because if they were to report accurately in a lot of these stories, you're only going to find on Fox. It's wild, right? It's just like, okay, yeah. And a handful of other channels that cover this kind of thing, mine included, News for Reasonable People. A lot of the storylines that I read, they only come from a handful of sources because everybody else is like, there's no problem. There's no issues here. It's all good. How about those Bears? Just totally divert the subject to something else. And that's how we get here with this kind of thing. And yet you've got business owners, you've got the general public, you've got police who've been vocal about this. You've got political leadership now being pressed to come up with some solutions. And you've got a drug epidemic on your hands. That is, I firmly believe, at the root cause of a lot of this criminal activity. And also because these criminals know they're going to get away with it. And so why wouldn't they do this? That's the real question. So yeah, we're going to talk in just a little bit. We're going to talk about, lawmakers maybe looking at making some changes. And that's in Washington State, one of the most liberal states out there. Washington State just gave up its mandate for both county and I think it was Seattle City workers to be vaccinated. That was announced yesterday, Monday. So county and city employees no longer have to have the vaccine. Yeah, what a debacle that was. But our genius Governor Inslee, he's going to keep it hard line for the state workers. Still got to be vaccinated. And the response was, the whole vaccine thing, it really worked. It worked so well that we're going to take off the vaccine mandate and all of you workers. And there's a lot of workers that had just kind of held out and worked remotely, for these entities. And good for them. You held the faith. You head high throughout that 3-year period of just insanity. Hey, we need to jab you with this, we need to jab you for you to keep your job. That's kind of what we're doing. So that was an interesting one. How about that blimp? What about the whole blimp deal? I don't even know what to make of that. All right. We don't want to drop it down because it's the size of like 3 school buses. Don't want to crush somebody on the ground. Let's just let it do its spy activity and just wait a handful of, no, it's still there. Just going to wait. And then we drop it down after how many days? I mean, yeah, that whole story thing, just, some crazy insanity. I'm going to see what you guys are talking about here. Yeah. Thanks, Jay Inslee, our governor. I don't know if there's too many that are just terrible, but don't they need the original shots if they want to work? Yeah. You can't have today's shots. It's, shouldn't require vaccinations for anyone. Absolutely true, Samantha. Totally agree. It's, we kind of figured this would happen, but didn't figure it would take this long. And then I think it was Portland. No. Was it New York City? New York City abandoned all of its vaccine mandates. And then I think Oregon did. And then Washington's always like, we're, upper left USA. We don't really know what's going on. Let's just look down the coast. Let's look over at the East Coast. What are those guys doing? Oh, yeah, we're going to drop the vaccine mandate. I mean, this is, the normal stuff that we get out of our political leadership here. And then we wonder, hey, how come things aren't really going all that well? Why are things, trending downwards towards a lot of these things that impact people like, crime and, people dying of drugs and homelessness and just crazy stuff like that. It's how you get here, right? It's how you get here. See if you guys have anything else. Somebody wake Maria Cantwell and Patty Murray up. Those people have been in place forever. Talking about politicians. The way Washington got where it is you've just had this, blue wave after blue wave after blue wave. And then people wonder, well, it can't be our politicians that got us here. Well, yeah, it is, right? It is. All right, let's jump into the second topic. And this one's kind of an entertaining one. Somebody sent this to me on Discord. If you haven't checked out Discord, check out our Discord channel. It's called Reasonable Plus. It's totally free. Should have a link on this description of this live stream, how you access Discord. And people are posting a ton of topics. Like, I think at least a couple of these storylines I'm reading today came from Discord. So you guys are posting them there, and a lot of people are joining. So it's a fun place for the Reasonable People community to hang out, because it's like-minded people. Because if you have some people posting, stuff that we don't approve of, just jump on them, just hammer on them. It's okay. It's a Discord channel. It's what we're doing. All right. Defund police lawmaker ripped for hypocrisy after the Los Angeles Police Department was called to watch the staffer's Lexus. Yeah, not even the councilman, one of his staff, car broke down. Yo, guys, got a Lexus side of the road. Can you guys send, somebody by every 15, 20 minutes to make sure it doesn't get broken into? I don't know about you, but it only takes these thieves about a minute. Bash a window, open a door, check it out, grab stuff. They're off, right? So how many times are you going to want the police to go by? Let's check it out. Let's get into it. Los Angeles City Council member Hugo Soto Martinez slammed by local police union. How about calling AAA? AAA. I used to have AAA. I don't anymore. I don't know. I never ended up using it. You get a newer car, it never breaks down. Now I'll probably need it in the next week or so, right? A Los Angeles City Councilman who's expressed support for defunding and ultimately abolishing the police is under fire after his office called the Los Angeles Police Department to patrol a staffer's broke down Lexus. A staffer for Democrat Los Angeles City Council member Hugo Soto Martinez called the Los Angeles Police Department Wednesday evening asking for extra patrols throughout the night. This is LA. They've got better things to be doing. They are out there doing those better things, right? The gall of some people. Hey, yeah, I know about that whole defund the police. And that whole abolishment thing. We didn't want to get rid of all law enforcement. We didn't want to get rid of all the judges and the legal system and prisons. I mean, we did, but we need your help. So let's just try and move past that. And could you guys send a cop car like every 15 minutes past my staffers? Must have been an important staffer, right? I mean, what was that staffer doing to deserve this kind of attention? Inquiring minds want to know. Probably nothing. But this is how this goes, right? This is how these folks think, that when they need the help, they should get it. When they need the help, it should be there for them. But wait a minute, we wanted to defund the police. They wanted to defund the police. They wanted to get rid of, that was a big thing. We had a couple of council members in the city of Seattle that were into abolishment too. And it's like, really? Because you don't have anything really set up to handle all this criminal activity as it sits now. So you're going to take that away, take that layer away, just see how it goes. And now you want those police that you were about to abolish, if you were given that chance. Fortunately, nobody really went down that road. We've seen the impacts of what happened when we defunded the police, and it hasn't been good. Just kind of like the North Carolina deal. It's not good. Don't have enough cops. If you could swarm the streets, you would. But then, in these cities where this has gone on, you arrest a bunch of people, and if they're not going to be prosecuted and if they're not going to be given time, it's kind of like, what's the point? And that's where we're kind of in the middle of, this time period where, all right, we start to take a tough line, or if we start to go down these roads of we're going to start arresting people for actual criminal activity, or we're going to take things that were once misdemeanors and remake them, felonies to give a little more bite to the law. We're not there yet, right? We're not there yet. So you've got this knucklehead here on the Los Angeles City Council. 1 minute is defund the police. Greatest idea ever. Greatest concept ever. And then the next minute, he's not unlike any of these other officials who, they want their own privilege and everybody else. Screw those people. They don't really need the police. Los Angeles, it'd be probably fine without a police department, wouldn't it? Imagine Skid Row without any cops. I hear they rarely go there to begin with, but all right. So literally that would be the purge, right? Now there's no police presence at all, and they're not coming if somebody does something wild. All right, game on. I mean, that would be some real Mad Max territory, wouldn't it? So he asked for extra patrols throughout the night for his parked white Lexus after the vehicle broke down, according to reports. Can you believe he even made that phone call? Well, I'd like you to send over somebody. I'm a council member. We remember you. Weren't you on the whole defund and abolish? Oh, well, back then I was, but yeah, kid's car's broken down. So could you help him out? Can you help me out? I mean, do me a solid, even though I basically wanted your entire industry gone and defunded. Soto Martinez, who represents LA's District 13, previously identified himself as a police abolitionist on a Los Angeles City Council candidate questionnaire. That's when it was hot. It was a hot ticket item, right? At one point in time, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm totally into abolition. Now, not so much. In the 2020 or the 2022 elections, that became apparent early 2021. That was no longer a kosher thing to get into. That was no longer a kosher thing to basically be saying out loud, but these folks with their information on the interweb, people do a quick search and everybody knows, everybody in LA knows, all right, this council member, this council member, this council member, just like we do here in Seattle. In Seattle, we're going to have the majority of all of our city council positions are going to be open. Nobody's running for re-election. I think we've got 2 people that are going to stay on. 2 people that are going to go for re-election. The rest, everybody was like, nope, I'm bailing. I'm going to go do something else. And some of our worst council members, those positions will be up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't have a lot of faith that the people in Seattle recognize what's going on. They want their people on the city council, and we'll just get much of the same. And I will continue to have podcasts for years because of leadership going down these roads that got us where we are. The vice president of Los Angeles Police Protective League, Sergeant Jaretta Sandoz, slammed the hypocrisy from the far left official on Fox and Friends first Monday. I'm glad. I think that's great. You got to call it what it is. You got to make these people understand that, hey, you were going down these roads that were literally going to destroy your city even further if you can. I had a conversation yesterday with my eldest son. He's in downtown Seattle fairly often. He walked the Blade the other day and he was like, Dad, why do they allow that to happen? And, it's just open drug use and just wildly open. And I'm like, well, they've decriminalized possession of drugs. And if you're an addict, that's where you're going to go because you've got all the dealers there. And I was like, we're a bunch of dudes selling stolen stuff. He goes, yeah, up and down the street, bunch of teenage kids. I'm like, yeah, those are gang members. They're just selling their wares for their folks. And then people are shooting up. And this is literally like one street in downtown Seattle. It's like just been, we just gave it to them, even though we've had an emphasis patrol there. One of the other things we talked about is how bad Skid Row has become. I mean, it's become just it's been known as a community that's just horrible and horrific. Basically a 50-block area that they've just, all right, yeah, I'll let the purge happen here. And that's what goes on. It's just, insanity. So LA without cops. We have a serious crime problem in Los Angeles, she continued. We have murder We have homeless encampments. We have robberies, home invasion robberies. And then you have a councilman calling because his car broke down. That's unbelievable. We're down 700 police officers in Los Angeles. They're spread thin. And you have a councilman that's using his influence to have a police officer come to monitor his vehicle because it's a broken down. How about calling AAA? And it wasn't even the council member's car. It was a staff member's car. Can you help our crew out? I mean, it's a nice Lexus, It's a nice Lexus. It's really good shape. It's had the oil changed, consistently every 3,000 miles. So you send a cop car by and just, would you just, put a police officer, maybe lean him up against the hood and pretend that they're pulling somebody over and just, leave that cop there until we able to get a tow truck there to, help us out? Wild stuff, right? And just the hypocrisy is amazing. When reached for comment on the call, the councilman's office told Fox 11 Los Angeles that he is upset by the incident. This is upsetting. I called the police and I got called out on it. This is upsetting. It's come to our attention that it's a deputy staffer had some contact with the LAPD regarding his personal vehicle. We're investigating this matter internally and will be taking appropriate action. Council member Soto Martinez is very upset as this does not reflect the values of transparency, responsible governance, and being accountable to the community that elected him, the statement read. All right, so we're doing the blame game here. Doing the blame game. Okay, now you were for defunding the police and you were an abolitionist and you called on behalf of the staffer, and now it looks like you're blaming the staffer because this isn't the transparent. What do you got going on here? Yeah, it just seems like a bunch of nonsense to me, right? Doesn't it just seem like nonsense? Feels like it. It's like, okay, but this is nothing new, is it? This is nothing new. This is just kind of how that goes. People want what they want. And when they don't get it, they're like, what? What do you mean? That whole abolition thing. I mean, that's passé. We don't even talk about that anymore. I mean, I basically scratched that off my resume. It was a flash in the pan thing. We had that whole George Floyd thing and everybody was all worked up and seemed like a good concept at the time. And we didn't really think it through. And glad we didn't do that. But nobody ever says that though, right? Nobody ever says that. They just ignore the fact that that even happened, that even went on. Black Lives Matter is very open about, the underlying fundamentals of what they believe. Abolitionist at its core. Abolish everything to do with the judicial system. Start over. All right. Until you got something better, that's not going to work out all that well. Sanders called the response unbelievable and argued Soto Martinez's accountability includes protecting the citizens in his district from crime. How well is that working out in Los Angeles? How is that going? I mean, it's probably going better than it is for citizens of Portland with Mayor Ted, because that is not going particularly well either. That has gone wildly sideways to the point where, I'm talking about all these kind of Mickey Mouse deals that they're trying to implement so that they can get some people off the streets. But they've got themselves in a pickle, just like other major West Coast cities. And you know what? If we did a deep dive on Asheville, what do you want to bet that there's some drug issues going on there too? Although I did look at whether possession was still a felony in Asheville, and it looks like it is. So in state of North Carolina, possession of hard drugs is still a felony. But if you got a soft on crime approach by, district attorneys and the judges, then not much is going to happen. It's so irresponsible and dangerous to want to abolish the police and then to stand behind that and to say, we're going to investigate our own staffer, she said. I mean, that kind of tells you where it's at right there. It's hard to believe that the staffer didn't get direction from the councilman. I mean, this is his car, right? It's confusing whose car it is. If it's the councilman's car, then all right, you're really on the hot seat there, sport. I understood it from another article as well that it was the staffer's car. It doesn't really matter. Somebody made the call on behalf of the council member and said, hey, would you come down and check out our car? Yeah, car. I think they're backtracking on their campaign promise to abolish the police and to defund the police. So I don't buy that one bit, whatever they're saying about the car thing. Sanders believes the staffer was using their position to get special treatment. That's not shocking, is it? Arguing a regular citizen would not have been able to receive police help to watch a broken down vehicle. You think? You're lucky to get a police officer out to respond a car break-in, let alone have somebody just kind of stand watch over your vehicle. I don't understand how this person got elected to office, but he definitely needs to step down if he's not willing to protect his constituents and also protect the city of Los Angeles, Sandoz concluded. I 100% agree with this, but we knew this was going to happen. We just knew this was going to happen. What happens when you actually need the police? You dial 911 and you hope they get their asses there fast, right? I mean, that's just what we expect. So this whole concept of defunding the police, just crazy. I mean, it's just crazy train, right? It makes no sense. But they wanted to go down this road and they got a whole bunch of people to support them and back them. And then we bashed out stores, windows and did a lot of looting. And then all of a sudden, that kind of thing just dried up. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, yeah, okay, well, so your car broke down. I would like some help from the police. Crazy stuff, right? All right, that's it for me on this one. Let's see what you guys are talking about. What has happened to property values in these areas that are corporations buying them? Like down in Portland, property values are going up. In Seattle, properties are going up. Some of the areas that are hit hardest, they're going up at a slower rate. But oftentimes, these are located in areas where you've got such employment that it almost doesn't matter. People are like, okay, yeah, I mean, if you're willing to accept a break-in every now and then it's a relatively good neighborhood. It's going to be okay. You've still got more people coming in to a Portland. Almost. You had a couple of thousand people leave, but not enough to rock the boat on a big ticket item, not enough to drive property values down yet. And Seattle, because of our employment situation, LA, areas of LA, a lot of what people on the homeless side of things, and LA has got the biggest homeless population of anywhere. They want to say that lack of affordable housing, because you've got all these tech sector jobs and all this industry and, Los Angeles in general is just a massively spread out suburb / the commercial centers downtown. But that's not really what LA is all about, right? You've still got more people coming in than you've got people leaving. So, these property areas are not down as much as you would think. And I haven't seen any corporations. I haven't seen a BlackRock stepping in. Haven't seen that story at all yet, but I'm sure they will. There's just, supply of commercial is becoming way more as the whole work from home thing really starts to impact the downtown areas. Downtown Bellevue here where I am, I'm just outside of downtown Bellevue. It's going to be impacted heavily. Downtown Seattle already impacted heavily because of the work from home thing. And all these businesses are like, all right, can't seem to get our folks back into the office because everybody wants to work remotely. Looks like we don't need all this space. So you've got all these vacant buildings with leases that companies are just running out. And until that changeover takes place, and that could be years, because sometimes those commercial leases, you might have a 10-year commercial lease. 5-year commercial lease is not uncommon. At least a couple is minimum. Typically a 3-year lease, you sign a 3-year lease, unless you're in some kind of renewal deal. So until those start to come available, all this stuff is just kind of sitting out there, and you're not seeing massive turnover. You're not seeing massive turnover yet. Whether we'll see that down the road, I don't know. But a lot of these places, especially in the West Coast, a lot of these cities where this is happening, like our real estate market is up almost 0.5% year over year. We are up. We are not down 15% like economists are predicting. We're not down 25% because interest rates doubled. We're up. And that's because you've got employment that's driving demand, and you've still got little supply. You've got a couple of months supply throughout most of where I am at here, and you've got a couple months supply throughout a lot of markets in the United States. So that lack of supply, and now you've got interest rates dropping. Interest rates have dropped about a full point. That's driving some of the demand that's going on. So my little town of 8,000 is selling condos by the train tracks for 800,000 now. Big change. You know, things kind of keep rolling along, right? You got all these stories and people go, all right, you got to wait for the big corporations to jump in and scoop all these properties up. It's not really happening because there's still so much demand for housing, even in these areas where you've got knuckleheads running the cities. Because people in the, you know, somebody elected all these officials. So they got to kind of sit in their own poop, right? And that poop right now, to me, is a massive opioid epidemic. Massive. And we're just going to watch that. We're watching that unfold right in front of us. All right, speaking of that, let's jump on into the next segment here, which is we're at that point where people are like, okay, yeah, opioids, not great. You know, maybe the whole decriminalizing drugs, hard drugs, maybe that wasn't the greatest concept. But Vancouver, BC just did it. They're in the process right now of decriminalizing possession of hard drugs. I don't know how they can look around at other cities in proximity to them and go, all right, well, I mean, Portland's looking pretty good. It's looking good. I mean, they decriminalized drugs and nothing really bad happened there. Seattle, oh, yes, yeah, Seattle's got some, well, now that I look at Portland, they got some issues. Yeah, LA, yeah, yep, San Francisco, oof, yeah. Had a little chat about the Tenderloin with my oldest son yesterday. It's like, Dad, have you heard of the Tenderloin? Yes, I have. Podcast on it pretty often. And it's just one of those areas that over time gets run over, you know, like Skid Row, but Skid Row is in LA that's been like destination. All right, guys, here is your 50 block neighborhood. You want to go do shenanigans? You go there. It's like, that is like, you know, LA's, the Tenderloin in San Francisco, kind of along the same lines, right? You've got a bunch of other neighborhoods in San Francisco that have been impacted as well. But the Tenderloin probably rocked the hardest, from what I can tell. And so, you know, you've got lawmakers in Washington going, lawmakers consider options to change Washington drug laws and require rehab for offenders. We're coming full circle. Here we go. All right, let's just see how this one worked out. Well, let's see how the whole decriminalizing drugs works out. That should be fine. I mean, you won't have a spike in demand for drugs if you make it, you know, decriminalize that, and you decriminalize all the activities that people can get said small amounts of money for their drugs, mainly stealing from the community, stealing from local businesses. And then, you know, since we're not going to prosecute them, we'll just, you know, keep this system going. It's a great ecosystem for crime and overdosing. And now the overdose numbers are getting to that point where local officials are like, okay, yeah, maybe this wasn't the greatest of concepts. Maybe we need to rethink and reimagine this. And that's what we're doing. Require rehab for offenders. Could you imagine that first offender that gets busted? I got to go to rehab. I did the same crap 22 times before and I never had to go to rehab. What are you talking about? Yeah. I mean, hello, we changed the laws. Oh, that's not good. Washington lawmakers are considering several bills to decide how the state will handle drug laws in the wake of a 2021 Supreme Court ruling that struck down the state's felony drug possession statute. It was based on a woman who borrowed a pair of pants from a friend that had drugs in the pocket that were not her drugs. So we decriminalized possession is essentially what happened, right? And it's not going well. It basically puts Seattle on the map for a stopover in the drug tourism trade. You know, hey, come to Seattle, be fine. You get plenty of drugs. One of the big things that to me is crazy is you've got super cheap drugs and they're plentiful and they're wildly available. And rehab, not so much. So even if you go through with some laws, you're going to change the bandwidth massively on the whole rehab thing. Are you going to start bringing people in by the boatloads to work on all the people that need rehab? Because it's pretty hard to get somebody in right now to rehab in Washington State unless you've got crazy good insurance. And guess what? The felons out there doing the activity that we're going to arrest them for, they don't have great insurance, right? And they've got Obamacare at best, right? So a stopgap measure passed by the legislature after the Supreme Court Blake decision. Blake decision is the pant pockets with cocaine, I think it was. Those are not my pants. Who borrows pants from a friend? I mean, you know what I mean? You got any pants I could borrow? You got a pair of jeans I could just, borrow and wear? I mean, could you leave? Who leaves drugs in their pocket? I didn't use up this last little bit. I'll just leave it here. Seriously? I mean, Washington State is so weak. The Senate Law and Justice Committee heard proposals Tuesday for new laws that would criminalize drug possession and incentivize drug users to go to rehab. Okay. Are you really going to incentivize them to go to rehab? Are they going to, they're going to do 45 days in jail, or they're going to go to rehab? I could see a bunch of guys saying, rehab, screw that. No way, I'm just going to do 45 days. Because are they going to have to do 30-day treatment? Are they going to have to detox? They're probably going to take the 45 days of incarceration, right? And a felony on their record. Yeah, why wouldn't they? Because it's not like they're needing a clean resume. Senator Jesse Solomon, Democrat from Shoreline, is sponsoring one of the proposals, SB 5476, which would require people arrested for drug possession to engage in treatment or face at least 45 days in jail. Here we go. Is this going to happen? Some version of this will happen eventually. They're going to hem and haw, and people are going to say, well, incarceration doesn't teach anybody anything. Yeah, but neither does running around the streets willy-nilly like we're doing now. Another thing I was talking to my son with was how crazy Aurora Avenue North in Seattle is, where you have basically decriminalized, you haven't decriminalized prostitution, but you've decriminalized standing around soliciting for prostitution. You can now solicit wildly open. You just can't do the actual act and get paid for it. So we've got all kinds of people up from California, all kinds of trafficking going on in a certain section of town. And it's kind of like the Blade in downtown Seattle. You've got this area where it's just like, all right, guys, do your thing. We're going to talk about cleaning this up, but we're never really going to do anything about it. And so everybody complains about sex trafficking. Go up to Highway 99 in a major part of Seattle. Tell me how that's going. Tell me that we really care about sex trafficking. We could give a crap, because you got girls walking up and down there. I mean, all day long, Our communities are suffering from rampant public drug use. I think we need to send a message to judges that they need to take these charges seriously, Solomon said. This creates a system where they can be arrested, not with the intent to jail them, but to say, look, the state and cities that need an option to get people into treatment. Totally agreed, but who was it that decriminalized drugs? Is it our people in the state legislature? It was, wasn't it? Huh. So this is something we created. These laws don't magically jump on the books by themselves, right? So you've got people that the citizens voted in. So now those citizens are going to have to go, you know what? We're going to have to reimagine this. We're going to have to take a slightly different approach because, this is somebody saying, okay, I understand that we've got a wildly out of control situation, and there are parts of Shoreline that are wildly out of control. So this individual would know. State Bill 5476 would dismiss charges if the offender completes drug treatment before conviction, and vacate a conviction if the offender completes substance abuse disorder treatment as a condition of probation. We've been down these roads before, right? And we're just basically doing the same thing over and over and over. State Bill 5035, sponsored by Senator Mike Patton, a Republican from Spokane Valley, would make possession of a counterfeit substance as a Class C felony. It's counterfeit substance, that's interesting, and encourage prosecutors to divert an individual's first charge to drug treatment. We need the proper leverage to get these people into treatment. A misdemeanor charge won't compel them to get into treatment as much as a felony charge. Agreed, but at this point in time, our playing field is so wide open that I'm not sure that a reversal back to where we were before is really going to have much impact. Are you going to be able to how many people are you going to be able to take off the streets? Like seriously, how many are you going to be able to take thousands of people off the streets quickly? Because if you're not, then this stuff just keeps going. It just keeps going and building. And, more Businesses are broken into because people need to fuel their addictions. And this is what's driving all of that theft out there. It's not people, I'm looking to make my mortgage payment. I got to go out and do some robbing and stealing to make this happen. That's not how it goes. These are people desperate for their next fix. They know tomorrow they're going to go into, they're going to go into their body just screaming out for those drugs unless they've got enough money to figure out a way to buy that, next fix. And if they don't, it's not a good thing for them. It's not, tough go for them. That's their own fault. They make the decision to go down that road, they get hooked. It's their own fault. So lawmakers now trying to get some teeth into the law. Man, I don't know. You're starting off, with these small incremental changes. You need some big whoppers to change any of this. And we don't have politicians here in the state of Washington that have the backbone to make any kind of change. I don't think, in my opinion. We haven't seen it before. All of a sudden, why would that change? And like the Seattle City Council, we're going to see what the citizens are, really kind of responding to, because now you've got a situation where you can't blame it on all of these existing council members, all the crime on them. You're going to be able to blame it on the said residents who voted for whomever the new folks are, because, that's how this works. So if you want to make some change, if you honestly think that what's going on in your town and you've voted blue before, you might want to take a look at somebody a little bit more moderate or even into that red category. I know it's shocking. I know it's shocking to say that. But so they're talking about getting the leverage to get people into treatment. And I think that's great. Do I think it's going to happen, here in the near future? Now we're going to have some, hemming and hawing around. We're going we'll have a couple of these things that won't pass. And then somebody somewhere is going to drop the hammer. Hey, we need to get this going. We can't have these streets run like the way they are right now. And so, something will change somewhere, and then we'll start to go down that road. Maybe. It is Washington State after all. State Bill 5536 would create pretrial diversion programs for people charged with possession of a prohibited substance and would vacate convictions if the individual completes substance abuse treatment. We have been down this road before. Did it work then? No, but it's going to work even worse now because nobody really believes in this system. We don't have a substance abuse system that works. It's just not happening. So I think these bills are a step in the right direction. Will they happen in the state of Washington? Probably not. I doubt it. I don't think people are there yet. You talk about people bottoming out from their addiction, whatever that may be. We haven't gotten there yet. It hasn't gotten bad enough. You might say, hey, I live in an area that's not bad at all. And in comparison, your area is bad. Yeah, but it's not bad enough to get the change that we need. That's where I kind of think we sit right now. Because as I watch, homeless encampments burn, and we got encampments here and there, and craziness going on, and businesses leaving, and, stuff like that going on. And then we're talking about this. You got some changes that are going to happen, but I don't think they're anytime soon. I think we're a ways out. So then you've got some suffering for a ways out. And so those businesses leaving, they're probably making the right choice. Where are they going? They're typically going to the suburbs because the suburbs didn't fall into all these games of, it's just, decriminalize everything and we'll see how it goes. And sure, this will work out. All right, that's it for me on that one. I'm going to see what you guys are talking about. The system is in failure. A lot of people say that's what's going on. And you know what? I think a lot of aspects of the system, you're 100% correct. We need to form an ad hoc committee to study the problem. Yeah, I think that's already happening. But then they see the results and they're like, well, we just need more housing. We need more housing. And you're like, are you not watching the same channel I am? Because that's what I feel like a lot of times is happening. You watch people that are boots on the ground reporting these things, and you're like, good Lord, what's going on here? And then the rest of social media just basically ignores it. It's all good. Let's throw some fish down at the fish market in Pike Place. So there seems to be only some, there's always something going on, and I don't know. It's a wild scenario. So why would anyone pay reparations? You guys talking about reparations? All right. What can we live without in this scenario? Yeah, the liberal Democrats don't want things to be better. It's malicious. They ruined our cities on purpose so they can rebuild in their liking. That is a lot of what is being spoken out there. Did you guys watch the Emmys at all? I did not. I read a few reports afterwards. You've got what, Sam Smith doing like a Satan impersonation bit routine deal. I mean, you want to talk about trying to break some systems down. You got some craziness going on at the Hollywood level, right? I mean, they are doing some stuff there. I mean, you want to go after. I was reading an article about how to offend just basically, half the country with one award show. Yeah, the Emmys did it. The Emmys did it. I saw enough clips from that. The one dude that I felt really, really bad for was Ben Affleck. He looked like he was having the worst time. He's probably sober-ish, and now he's married to J-Lo, who I don't understand that one. He with Jennifer Lopez. He was, they dated and almost got married 20 years ago. Didn't work out then. So 20 years later, you go back to the same person? I don't know. Ben Affleck, he looked real. He just looked just kind of upset the whole time he was there. He just couldn't wait to get out of there. I couldn't blame him because after sitting through that ridiculousness is, of the Emmys, just insane. All right, let's move on. This is the last one. This is a good one. I've been following this story. You guys remember the Goonies movie, 1985 movies? Corey Feldman. Remember him? He's still out there running around. He's doing his thing. This is filmed down in Astoria. And my mother and father-in-law lived in Astoria for years when my kids were little. So we would drive down the coast and go visit them in Astoria, actually in Warrenton, just outside of Astoria. But a lot of this stuff here is based on the movie Free Willy. Remember that? The whale movie? My father-in-law was a commercial fisherman, and he had a boat, and he was on the boat in one of the scenes. And he was doing this number, yelling and screaming for Willie to, to be freed, and, come on, Willie. So a lot of history of movies in Astoria, but this one is really interesting. After leaving a dead fish at the Goonies house, somebody has bought the Goonies house, which is this big house kind of sitting up on the hill in Astoria. Somebody bought it, and they're making it into like a Goonies, exhibit kind of deal. He goes there, he leaves a fish there. Why? I don't know. And then police say he's a Canadian man. He also steals a boat and he needs Coast Guard rescue. Now, the Coast Guard rescue is absolutely mind-blowing. Jericho Wolf Labonte, 35, is currently in ICE custody. He's in immigration custody at the Northwest Detention Center in Washington after being arrested at a warming shelter in Seaside. So this story just has legs. A man who posted video on social media of himself leaving a dead fish. Yeah, these videos just autoplay. A man who posted a video on social media of himself leaving a dead fish on the porch of the famous Goonies house in Astoria on Wednesday later had to be rescued from a stolen boat, as seen in a harrowing video posted by the U.S. Coast Guard Friday. It's a 35-foot boat. It's a big boat. So he leaves a dead fish, and then he steals a boat out of a harbor in downtown Astoria, which is on the Columbia River. You got the Columbia River meeting the Pacific Ocean, and it's called the Graveyard of the Pacific because the current and the tide, they don't work out well together. So this guy somehow steals the boat and gets out there. On Friday evening, Seaside Police and officers from the Clatsop County Sheriff's Office and Oregon State Police arrested 35-year-old Jericho Wolf Labonte of Victoria, British Columbia at a warming shelter in Seaside. So the guy's basically homeless as well. Let's just watch him. Let's watch him take a, there's no audio on this, so we should be fine here. No, we're not looking to skip ad. All right, let's watch this guy. All right, looking around, probably super early in the morning, I am guessing. So, sorry. He dumps a fish on the porch. Dumps the fish on the porch, looks around. He's just like, all right. That seems like a totally reasonable thing to do. Now, he also takes a video of that and posts that on Facebook. Facebook. Now, why is he doing that? Hold on one second. Yep, there's his Facebook picture right there. I'm losing my computer. Well, hopefully my computer sticks with it here. And if it doesn't, I'll just kind of tell you the story. So, guy does the fish thing, and he's down from Canada. He's just hanging out. As of Saturday afternoon, Labonte is in U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Officials said Labonte was wanted on charges of theft, endangering another person, unauthorized use of a vehicle, and criminal mischief. Additionally, he is a wanted fugitive out of British Columbia and a suspect in other cases. Police received a report Wednesday that the man, later identified as Labonte, had left a dead fish on the porch of the Goonies house in Astoria. The act was caught on surveillance video, which the homeowner shared with KGW. He's seen walking up. We just watched that. Okay. Fast forward to Friday. So that's a Thursday. On Friday, police said Labonte stole a boat called the Sandpiper from the West End Basin, which is in Astoria on the river, and later had to be rescued by the Coast Guard, according to Kelly. In a series of tweets posted early Friday afternoon, Pacific Northwest branch of the Coast Guard stated that 2 air crews were conducting a training mission at the mouth of the Columbia River received a Mayday broadcast from the Sandpiper. The Coast Guard launched motor lifeboats from nearby Cape Disappointment, the agency said, but the air crews arrived and found the Sandpiper floundering in the surf in conditions that made a boat rescue dangerous. You've probably got 20, 25, 30-foot waves rolling in there. I mean, it is just some hellacious seas. Some hellacious seas. Let's get down to, here's one of the videos. Let's play this one. Make sure. I don't think there's any audio. I hate these. Okay, so you got the swimmer swimming out to him. I don't know why he steps out on the back. Looks at the wave. Check out this wave. Oh, roll over, Beethoven. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Okay, so there's that. That's taken up. That's a 36-foot boat and just rolling it over on a single wave. Just basically crushed the boat. So this guy steals that boat, and that happens to him. And they take him up. And so that swimmer in the water, he said it was like being in a washing machine. So he comes up, he finds the guy, he grabs a hold of him, they bring him up on the chain, they get the guy into the hospital, he's okay, he lives. I wonder what happened to the boat. What happened to the boat? Did it sink? I don't know, because usually they don't allow those boats to sink just because you got the whole fuel. I'm guessing that was a diesel boat, but you can see how top heavy that boat was. I mean, it just rolled over, right? All the winds that's out there. I mean, that's some hellacious weather they have at this, graveyard of the Pacific. This guy had no idea what he was doing, but he's probably some kind of fisherman background, because who else is going to be able to take a twin prop boat that you've just stolen and drive it out that far? Clearly he got in over his head, but they got him to the hospital and then they release him. I'm kind of thinking, what's going on? You just release? I mean, was that your boat? Did they run the tags on the boat? Did it immediately sink? I don't know. There's so many questions on this story. It's just wild to see happen. So the kid that's in the water, I kind of got thrown around a little bit by the wave. And then when I came up, I noticed that the boat was pretty much in shambles. You could see that. That top end was just destroyed. Labonte was taken to the hospital but was discharged before officials realized that he'd stolen the boat and left a fish on the Goonies' house porch and posted it on social media and was wanted up in Canada for a handful of just misdemeanor knucklehead stuff. Unfortunately, he was discharged from the hospital before everybody put two and two together. So he is somewhere between here and where the Coast Guard base is. Apparently, he left his jacket on the Coast Guard helicopter, and we believe he's heading back there to retrieve his jacket. This guy is not the most brilliant of criminals, is he? I mean, he's probably thinking on that helicopter ride, oh my gosh, do they know that I have stolen a boat? They have no idea. It's just wild, right? So then we've got the police. Somebody in social media said, I know that dude. And then they realized, oh, that's the guy that just got rescued. I mean, that's a heck of a rescue. That's a wild, wild rescue happening, right? Police were looking for Labonte throughout Friday evening, eventually finding him at a seaside warming center. Now, Seaside is a little bit further down the coast from Astoria and then Warrenton and Seaside. I used to go to Seaside as a kid and feed the seals. They had pet seals there, and they were very fun to feed, but it was very stinky ordeal. So a lot of fun stuff there, and you'd walk the beaches. I mean, it's just an epic area of Oregon. But don't take that boat out there. I've been out in a fishing boat out that direction on a sunny day when it was calm, and we still had just big rollers going through, and it made me a little sick. But, being out in the ocean, that's going to happen. This guy, not the brightest, not the sharpest tool in the shed. He just drives right into the weather, right into the massive waves. And he probably got out there and went, oh, this isn't working out well. Mayday, mayday. Actually, it's mayday, mayday, mayday. Despite the charges in Canada, Kelly said that they were not serious enough to warrant extradition. However, he said that the U.S. Border Patrol was aware of the situation and wanted to be notified as soon as he was taken into custody. The Goonies house was used as the filming location for the 85 cult classic movie. It's been a popular tourist attraction for fans of the film. More recently, the house was listed for sale and eventually purchased for just over $1.65 million. This is an hour outside of Portland. That kind of gives you an idea. It's by somebody who came forward publicly after the sale and declared that he was a fan of the film and wanted to preserve the landmark. Enough for some crazy dude to drop a fish on there and then go out and just take a boat. I mean, where was the guy going to go with that boat? Was he just going out? Is he doing a joyride? So many questions, so few answers. I did do some follow-up on this topic, tried to figure out what was going on. If somebody knows what happened to the boat, let me know. And did it just sink? Maybe, probably. Because otherwise you'd hear about some kind of, rescue effort. But I also didn't hear about it sinking. So I don't know. It's kind of wild. But that story to me, that's our guilty pleasure. Because some of the other stories that we read, they're just hardcore. All this criminal activity and stuff. You got to read about the stupid criminal every now and then, right? And that's what this guy was. He had so many different aspects there. And putting that boat just whoop, boom. Yeah. Shows you how powerful the ocean is. So yeah, just some wild stuff. All right. I'm going to take a quick peek at what you guys are doing over here. Should have been fish food. Yeah, it's crazy. Smelling like fish and all. No one owes reparations. You guys are still on reparations. Yeah, I kind of agree there as well. It's one of those deals where what happened, and we should all move back. Send them back to Canada. I think they are doing just that. I think they were in the process. I think it was this morning of moving him back up there. He's up at he's up in the border, up in Blaine, where they've got a center up there. But past the Cocaine Cola and full speed ahead through the ice field, this ship is unsinkable. All right. Yeah. Well, it's unsinkable until it's not. The ocean is scary. Yes, it is. So, Captain of the Titanic. Yep, somebody's got to do it, right? All right, that's it for me, folks. I am going to go do some real estate stuff. Thank you so much for being with me. I think we're going to do Tuesday and Thursday live streams. I think that's going to be kind of our schedule. And maybe every now and then a Friday live stream, we'll throw that in there too. That kind of gives me some time to prepare after a weekend, prepare on Monday, because you got to come up with a bunch of stuff, do some research, make sure these aren't fake stories, because every now and then you get a fake story thrown in. You're like, I'm going to read that. Oh, yeah. So you got to do some due diligence. Hope you guys enjoyed these 4 stories, and I'll catch up with you in the next one. All right. Thanks again for being here. I'll see you then. Again, thanks so much for being here.